Do you know the mystery behind the most famous sign in golf? You know what sign I'm talking about. That ominous warning that greets golfers at Bethpage Black in Farmingdale, New York, host of the 2025 Ryder Cup. It's about 3 feet wide, a couple feet high, and sits behind the first tee at the Black course, one of the most difficult public tracks in the world. Warning, the Black course is an extremely difficult course, which we recommend only for highly skilled golfers. The sign first landed on the national radar in 2002, when the Black became the first public course to host a US Open. The sign was irregular on the broadcast. Tiger Woods was the only player to finish under par, and he won by 3. The course was hard, the sign was a hit, a star was born. And I'm not talking about Tiger Woods. Now it's on head covers, shirts, ball markers, posters, towels, even coffee mugs. But here's the really interesting part. While everyone can seem to agree that that sign is as much a part of Bethpage lore as the punishing par 4s and that gnarly rough, no one, and I mean no one, can seem to agree on how or when the sign got there. Back in 2019, ahead of that year's PGA Championship at Bethpage Black, I went on a mission trying to track down its origin. But what began as an innocent phone call to the pro shop led to a months-long reporting journey filled with leads, dead ends, conflicting information, and more questions than I had answers. I scoured the web, dug through newspaper archives, and interviewed more than 24 sources. One inquiry led to another, and then another, and then another. I spoke to superintendents, park directors, course designers, golf coaches, communications specialists, authors, bloggers, fellow journalists. I even contacted the Long Island Golf Association, the Metropolitan Golf Association, the United States Golf Association, the Long Island Studies Institute at Hofstra, the Nassau Players Club, and even St. John's University. Nada. Several people I interviewed claimed they saw the sign in the 60s. Others vouch for the 70s. Some swear it was installed in the 80s. Theories abound, but much more limited are government records, accessible archives, or photo evidence. The elusive answer's greatest obstacle is time. But before we return to the sign, you have to understand Bethpage and why a warning might have been needed in the first place. So let's go to Bethpage historian Philip Young, who wrote a biography of Bethpage Black architect A.W. Tillinghast, as well as other books on the Black course. He grew up on Long Island and has logged more than 400 rounds on the Black. Young says he personally saw the sign in 1967, and he believes it was there even earlier, because he heard family members talk about it. He says the end of the Vietnam War, followed by increased demand and the addition of a 5th course, paints a convincing narrative that there was a need for a sign in the 60s. Dr. Bill Quirin also has an opinion. He's the longtime historian for the Metropolitan Golf Association and the author of America's Linksland, A Century of Long Island Golf. He says he's certain he saw the sign there by 1969. Others, however, struggle to place it there that early. The sign's most detailed origin story comes from Michael Asheroff, the Deputy Regional Director of the Long Island State Parks from 1976 to 1991. His story, from the early 1980s, you have to hear. It was Memorial Day in either 1980, 81, or 82. Asheroff doesn't remember the exact year, but he was sitting in the Bethpage clubhouse having coffee with course superintendent Eric Siebert. Suddenly, Siebert's radio starts to crackle. There's a problem on the golf course. A man was teaching his wife to play golf on the Black, and there were 5 or 6 open holes in front of them. Eventually, the foursome behind them had enough and hit into the group, but the man turned around and hit their balls back at them. The state park police showed up and had to get them separated. It was then when Asheroff says he scribbled something on a piece of paper, the exact wording he doesn't recall, and said to Siebert, "Get this over to the sign shop, have a sign made, and put it by the front desk. At least we're going to be warning people that this is much too tough a golf course unless you are skilled." Asheroff says the sign went up a couple of weeks later. He says the sign was born in early June, sometime between 1980 and 1982. Dave Catalano, who was the director of Bethpage State Park from 1995 to 2011, believes Asheroff's account. And former Bethpage head pro Joe Rahor, his best guess is the sign went up between 79 and 82, which aligns with Asheroff's estimate. So, mystery solved? Not exactly. Quirin and Young insist the sign was there earlier. So does Ron Miro, a staffer in the Bethpage Pro Shop who remembers the warning sign when he played there in the 60s. Quirin told me, quote, "It's perfectly clear to me it was there in 1969, early 70s. Nobody put that in the 1980s. There's also this interesting possibility. What if everyone, in a way, is right? Articles by different authors that appeared in Newsday in May 1981 and again in July 1982 both mention a sign posted by the Starter Shack, and both say the warning read the Black course was, quote, "not recommended for beginners." That phrasing is different from the modern-day warning that reads the course is recommended only for highly skilled golfers. That means the sign changed at some point. Fast forward to September 1982, and Asheroff is quoted in a Newsday article talking about improvements coming to the Black course. He also seems to reference a sign that already exists, saying, quote, We also plan to have stronger warning signs saying the black course is the most difficult course and should be played only by serious golfers. So was Asheroff referring to replacing the sign that was put in after that Labor Day incident? Or is he referring to another sign, perhaps one that Young and others recall? Maybe we've been looking at this all wrong. What if there's a version to this where some sort of black course warning existed in the late 60s or 70s? And what if a more prominent, more strongly worded warning replaced it in the early 80s? We might never know the exact history, but maybe it's better that way. It adds to the mystique of Bethpage Black. A course that's not only a world-class public layout so good that it hosts major events, but also one that average Joes love so much they'll sleep in parking lots to play. The Black will beat them up and they'll still come back for more. In fact, after all these years, what's most ironic about the sign is that it's both a star and a failure. Because everyone knows about it, but no one's ever listened to it.